Candice is a Poet Laureate Emerita of New Westminster, BC, writer, musician, and brilliant visual artist. I slipped in the brilliant. I'm not sure where it came from.
What?
Oh my goodness. She's the founder of the Royal City Literary Arts Society and the Fred Cogswell Award for Excellence in Poetry, a full member of the League of Canadian Poets and the Writers' Union of Canada. Her first book, A Split in the Water, was published in 1979 by Fiddlehead Poetry Books, University of New Brunswick, and her most recent book, The Path of Loneliness, was published in 2020 by IANA Publications, Toronto, Ontario. But today, both of our readers have mind melded to produce some way far out poetry to make the reader listener stand up and say, what the fuck? Can't believe I'm saying that, but that's what it's like. Their poetry is designed to open your mind to the things that cannot be, or can they? Don't attempt to adjust your mind, Zoom screen, or audio. You'll be entering the inner limits of sight, sound, and poetry that will knock your socks off and materialize new virtual shoes for a far out mind trip. Step into our interdimensional parlor and enjoy a truly outlandish and enlightened presentation. And now, welcome our first entity from planet Evideris, masquerading as CandiceJames. Go for it, Candice.
Yes, and thank you very much, Earthling Carol. I didn't expect you to definitely have that down right, but it's actually Evideris.
Evideris.
Yes, from the 27th star system of the Southingt0n Milky Way, our own Milky Way, which is a little less milky than yours. But anyway, I'm going to start with some of our stuff. Matt and I have a great time. We go back and forth on the computer, adding lines, deleting lines, starting stuff, ending stuff. It's just a lot of fun. And between the two of us, we've become different people when we write. This one's called A Peculiar Tale of Chess. A late move can be a great move, and the last move is often the best move. But I rarely win at chess. I love to play and all, but it's just not my strong suit. I'm a mover, not a shaker, a groover, not a Quaker. I learned early on, no matter which direction you long to travel in, you're going to need wind in the sails, regardless of your best laid plans or strategy. On the high seas of life, without a friendly wind, you just ain't going nowhere, buds. And I found out in my younger polo days, it ain't the wood or the size of the mallet. It's the strength in the arm and the twist of the wrist, regardless of the proximity of the ball. Same way with golf, really. It's keeping your eye on the ball and choosing the right iron. Oh, where were we? Oh, yeah, the chess match. Yeah, so this preteen girl who couldn't have been older than 12 beat me in 6 moves once. She told me it was the fastest she'd ever been able to beat someone. What was I supposed to do? Stand up and clap and cheer, celebrate that crowning achievement with her? Never one to choke down the soured milk in my glass. I stood ever so graciously and shook her hand and offered a mighty yet hollow congratulations. Then I decided to head westward ho, sans wagon, on foot, into the more densely forested part of the park. This is where the story gets peculiar. I overheard whispers, high-pitched whispers, coming from behind a sparsely clothed juniper bush. I edged closer, not wanting to eavesdrop, but somehow feeling compelled to do so. It was a gathering of miniature chess players flapping their gums. The short, squat one with turquoise skin was palavering on. How did she do it? Dieteron is not that smart. How did she make herself grow larger and change her skin color? The others didn't seem too interested in what Squatty was saying. One threw an apple core at him, shouting, "Shut up, Squatty." He continued rambling on. And to think she took all our moves and beat that goofy guy in 6 moves. That's cheating. I mean, for Gugaka's sake, she was playing with an Earthling who doesn't know she has every chess move ever made immediately accessible by just touching the end of her nose. Hell, he doesn't know the difference between his arsehole and a hole in the ground. That poor sucker didn't have a chance. That's all I needed to hear. I saw her touch her nose exactly 6 times. I rushed back to tell the judges what a goddamn fake cheater she was. But who'd believe me? I would find it hard to believe me. She looked so young and sweet and innocent and perfect, like nothing could rankle her at all. Squatty was wrong. Dieteron was smart, really smart. He couldn't change his size or his skin color like she could, but Squatty was right, too. I didn't have a chance then, and I didn't have a chance now. Winning and exposition mix like oil and water. They don't. As I reached the judges' table, I faltered for a moment, decided to save my breath and my rep, too. So I just smiled and kept on walking, possibly even to New Orleans. And that's the end of that one. And then the next one, thanks guys, the next one is called Innocent Bystanders. We've all been that somewhere in our lives, we probably. Innocent Bystanders. Just a quick little thing. This is kind of a takeoff, if you guys remember Dragnet, the movie, not the movie, the actual show with Jack Webb and some other guy back in the late 50s, early 60s. So it's called Innocent Bystanders. The big iron stamp clanging down onto the paper-covered steel desk. And then the strict, forceful voice leaking onto the black and white TV screen. You are about to see a true story. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent. Makes me wonder why they never changed the names of the bystanders. I gotta ask, not expecting an answer. Like the music. Da 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 da. Fade in. Sergeant Joe Friday. Slick back. Greasy kid stuff hair and beady eyes. A strange looking dude at best. Dumble at worst. Deaf, not a pinup boy heartthrob. A bit lazy too. Friday only worked on Fridays. At least in my area on the small black and white screen world. I heard via the grapevine he was a real prima donna. Thought his breath was rosy and his armpits didn't stink, and figured the only day worthy of his presence was his namesake day of the week, Friday. Not a lot of bad guys, but I don't think he killed any. The good guys and the bad guys took it a step up back then. They actually cared about innocent bystanders back then. Times and criminals were much more civilized in his day. He was a no-nonsense, stand-up guy, had a good record. Speaking of records, whoever coulda, woulda thought little Willie Shatner would cut a disc after he left Star Trek? He should have slipped a disc instead of cutting one. The operation would have been much more successful. I mean, crikey, mate, I couldn't believe how bad it was and how ridiculously crazy he looked promoting it on TV. And then, like a disease, Leonard Nimoy follows suit. Didn't they give a damn about us innocent bystanders? Were they that nuts or just plain money hungry? Speaking of Leonard Nimoy, I went to a random art exhibit in Northampton, Massachusetts a few years back, and would you believe it was all photographs taken by Spock himself? I had no idea a Vulcan could even use a camera, and that wasn't even the crazy part. What struck me as wondrously odd was all his photos were of nude women. I kid you not. The gallery was a highbrow nudie bar, and in my very amateur, innocent bystander opinion, the pictures were fantastic. We're all voyeurs, even when we're not. I, I guess you thought I was finished, but I wasn't quite. I was just letting everybody ruminate on what the bar looked like, the gallery. Anyhow, I'll just finish it off. There's a couple more verses. We're all voyeurs, even when we're not. We're all wannabes, even when we're not. We're all good guys, even when we're not. Bystanders of all ilk and fashion. Try-standers, shy-standers, cry-standers, and the biggie of biggies, innocent bystanders. And yes, truth be told, we're all innocent bystanders until we're not. Now I'm finished. Sorry about that. Actually, why it actually happened is, for some reason, I'm reading off my computer, there was a big white gap before the end, and then another page appeared, and I thought, ooh, that's not good. We did it anyway.
Candice, I just wanted to say something. I don't know if anybody else is noticing this, but a high-pitched ping when you pronounce some words. Does anyone else notice? No? Okay, just forget I said it. It's just coming through on my computer. I'm going to mute myself again.
That's actually good.
It's usually only fellow Evidarians that can hear that. So you're kind of letting something out of the bag. Pump the brakes. Maybe you're more in tune than we thought.
And now that's given me a new idea for one of our poems upcoming. I'll be ping and you can be pong. Okay, this next one's called The Finest of Lines. The finest of lines. It's the finest of lines, that distinction between mental illness and brilliance. So many of the greats throughout history have been labeled crazy or quirky or cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Genius is rarely understood or accepted in its own time. It takes decades, sometimes centuries, for the masses to appreciate genius. In many cases, they're forgotten over time by most, and that's not okay, but it is okay because they shine and they shone when they were here, and shining is the point of the whole thing, if you know what I mean. It's like the song that tries to persuade genius to come out. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. There are so many potential bright and brilliant lights. Oh me, oh my, I say, why? Here's a scenario. We've probably all been guilty of this at some time. I mean, we can be living right next door to a genius and swear to God he's a goofball or a dolt. We can't see the writing on the wall for the wallpaper, and we can't see the genius of others through our cataracts. And yes, we do have invisible cataracts that only let us see what we want to see. And heaven forbid we see genius in someone else, as that would diminish our ego, our sense of self. That's the kind of cuckoo caca we seem to be mired in. Quicksand of the mind, handcuffed integrity, stuck in the clutch of false witness and prejudgment. It's the finest of lines. The difference between courage and bravery and true grit. It's fantastically fascinating to look back in time and see who history has labeled a hero or a villain, or a hero as a villain and a villain as a hero. It does happen, you know. We are easily duped. That still holds very true today, like amen in the church. But I can see through the many, many guises. Oh yeah, believe you me, I can see right down to the marrow of the bone, the marrow of it all. My ability to do so did take time to cultivate. Maybe it's been decades, maybe centuries, maybe lifetimes, or never-ending endlessness. I can't even be sure how long I've been lolling around in this laughing gas bubble of a multiverse. Here's another scenario. Let's say God loved bubble wands and blowing bubbles, and he loved spinning in circles and wand waving, and all the bubbles dispersed across the great nothingness. And as they dispersed, their outer shells hardened and their insides became very dense over time. And after floating for centuries, a group of them began revolving around the biggest one of their group. They became planets, spinning around the big boy, star we in our little corner of the verse called the sun or Sol, or that big fireball of nuclear energy in the sky that keeps us from freezing our asses off and dying, and yet one day will fry us all as it goes supernova. So much for God's children. They've been bad, now classed as irredeemable. Incinerate them, and then imagine his wand throwing into the universal garbage can when his bottle of soapy liquid ran empty. And then when he heard his mother calling him for dinner, he left the general area, and we, his creations, future living, breathing bubble babies, just kept on spinning away and further away until we were lost little lambs. We couldn't find our way home. You can believe that's true, or you can deny it. Who's to say it's wrong? Who's to say it's right? Finest of lines. The difference between believer and agnostic. The believer, believing in an afterlife, a beautiful eternal life. The agnostic, believing in nothing after, just total black unconsciousness. One is right and one is wrong. The believer doesn't care, because if it's not true, he'll never know the difference. The agnostic, being a non-believer, is really totally screwed. If he's wrong, he'll be banned and won't be allowed to enter through the hallowed doors to eternity, because he doesn't have a ticket to ride, and the glory train won't pass his way again. Yet, yes, it is the finest of lines. A happy, raving, saved fanatic, or a lost, left out in the cold, poor bastard. Could be my last one. If not, it's close to it. This one's called Don't. Just don't. Don't blame the past, and don't blame the present for the past. It's just like sending telegrams and toothpicks from the same time and the same forest to different clocks and different tree farms. Like zoning out the zones you're stuck in that don't fit, and dismantling and reshaping them into wristwatches and neck-laced timepieces, foul, knockoff, Apple, Mac, Cartier, and Rolex, then selling them as the real thing for the big bucks. Come on, man, give me a break and don't call me Joe. Just don't. Don't blame your hands or eyes, and don't blame the paint, the brush, or the canvas. They can't make a masterpiece by themselves. It's got to be a joint effort of all 5 plus your creativity. And don't say you have none. Everyone has creativity. It's a part of the human genome, spirit and psyche. It's been that way forever. You know what they say, the greater the artistry, the greater the underlying phenomena. So grab your long buried phenomena and hidden creativity by the scruff of their necks and plop them down with paint, brush, and canvas at the altar of greatness and art. The bride, creativity, will enter at the altar to stand in obedience to your desire. And when the marriage is consummated with the blend of paint, brush, canvas, and creativity, kiss the muse of inspiration in reverence, and your masterpiece will come kicking and screaming into the newly designed world you made. And the you were always meant to be will be born, and then born again and again into the colors of your soul. Don't count on being spellbound and remaining so. Get rid of the lollipops and clouds in your head. Pretending space isn't there doesn't make it not be there. Just like pretending to be a 7-footer won't make you any taller. Maybe your head will hold itself a bit higher, and maybe your shoulders will carry themselves a bit broader, but that's about it. Now, I'm not saying that's nothing. It's something. And so is the new you. Don't ever doubt it. Don't. Just don't. And oh yeah, give me a break, man, and don't ever call me Joe. Just. I don't know if any of you caught that little innuendo there, but I had fun writing it. And here's my last one, and I really like this one. What happens is this. What happens is this. You're asked to be perfectly sincere, and you're judged for it. What sense does that make? What happens is this. You're asked to be absolutely genuine, and you're ridiculed for it. Apparently, people don't appreciate honesty. I once fell into an immersion therapy of my own devising, not on purpose, happenstance, you know. An instinctual inclination said it would work. but I would have to do it 3 times. So I thought, that's doable. So I played rock, paper, scissors with my critical doppelganger frenemy to find the perfect order of attack, the best way to start the immersion. Rock. So I thought about black onyx stone, flecked with glittering bits of lapis and diamonds. I concentrated and entered the rock, becoming one with it. The obsidian gleam of pulsating brain was mesmerizing. The lapis and diamonds blinked off and on like eyes. Actually, they were eyes, but they were blind. They were only speckled on the onyx for show. I felt the warmth of the dark and the cool ice of the gemstones cutting into my mind and filling it with ancient lore and images. It was so beautiful. I thought I had died until I came to while exiting the rock and moving into the second immersion. Paper. Okay, now I was in my element. This should be easy. It was, and it wasn't. I entered the paper easily, but it was so hard to navigate the pixels and the grain, up, down, sideways, over, under, above, and below. Pixels were spinning, and turning me into words, sentences, and poetry. The ink from my mind ran onto the paper in a technicolor waterfall of bliss. But as it hit the paper, the colors coalesced and became black. I realized intrinsically and emphatically that the black and white of the world was multicolored, and the colors were just the ultimate of black and white. Ebony and pearl were opalescence and abalone. It was so musical, it was almost a song. I hummed along with what I thought I was hearing until I became one with the paper. It was so good I wanted to stay there forever, but alas, somebody pushed print. And I exited the paper, pixelated, confetti green, to move on to the third and final immersion. Scissors. They were laying innocently on the windowsill, shimmering blindingly in a shaft of bolted sunlight. They looked so inviting and yet so dangerous too. I thought about the time when I was 4 years old, sitting on the kitchen table playing with scissors, pushing them gently into the fabric weave of my jeans, upper thigh area, not even considering they were dangerous. My mother said, "Be careful, put them down. You could slip and you could cut your leg." I wondered what that would feel like. So I pushed a bit harder each time I pushed. Then the scissors thrust through into my leg and the blood burst out through my jeans. My mother was so upset and flustered, but that passed. Looking back, it seems to me she was always a nervous wreck. I wonder now if she was that way before I was born. Probably not. That was just one of the many frights I gave her. Anyhow, the lesson learned was this: scissors are not dangerous. I am. After the 3 immersions, what happens is this. You realize rocks have sentience and eyes, and they're spying on us, as are other inanimate things. Lesson learned: don't trust anything. All is alive. You realize white paper is not white at all. It's technicolor. Black paper is not black at all. It's 17 shades of white. The word is a master of disguises in holographic spin. Lesson learned: nothing is as it seems. You realize scissors are shiny and slick, sharp and useful, possibly perilous and life-threatening. Lesson learned: scissors are not dangerous, people are. In the final analysis, what happens is this: you learn lessons, and then you repeat your mistake. That's it. Thank you, folks. I had fun doing this. I love writing with Matt back and forth. So I toss you back to Carol, the Evidarian host.
Brava.
So we'll have a little bit of time for question and answer after both the poets have read, and then we also will have some time for open mic if people are interested in that as well. So then, our next Evideris masquerader is Matt Jose. Matt is a poet and a social media personality who is spreading his love for the underground grit of life with a blend of the serious commentary and the humor we all need to stay balanced in an unbalanced world. That's the earthly world. What Matt is reading today is maybe that unbalanced world that he tries to stay balanced in. Anyway, welcome, Matthew Jose.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's good to see everybody. The first one I'm going to read is an ode to one of my favorite humans/writers, Carson McCullers. I don't know if anybody else out there is a fan. I love sad souls and I love drunks. I can't help it. All right, this one's called Carson McCullers and the Sunny Boy Enigma. As time swoons and sways backwards, the expression of the melody becomes clearer. Damn, I wish I could have had a drink with the famous grand shaman of Mammon, Carson McCullers, the great soothsayer of my dreams. I'd like to think that when we first met, there would have been an acknowledging eye moment, followed by a kind of deep, scary silence, but a good one, you know? And that would be followed by a discussion about beef versus smoked salmon in sandwich form, as far as which is better or even more educational. And then, of course, followed by drink. Some hot Long Island iced tea and top of the mark sherry, followed by an in-depth discussion as far as which is better or even more musical. Her drink would be in a thermos with a Star Trek emblem, and mine would be in a fancy cordial glass, of course. And she would spend the first 10 minutes of our conversation explaining to me why she calls her drink Sunny Boy. Kazoom, bada boom, wowzers, thunder and lightning, mind blast and sonic zap, time warp, then shifted and opened up, and now she's sitting right here in front of me, sipping her drink and talking to me as if I was always there. She said she's amazed that I spelled Sunny Boy right. Says that most people spell it with an I or with a U, Sunny Boy, Sunny Boy. Says most drinkers are illiterate. Said she's never wrong. She leaves it at that, and I'm none the wiser regarding the name Sunny Boy and what it means to her. She doesn't give me a clue to why she calls it Sunny Boy. Decide to leave it alone and switch the convo up. I ask her why she's in this bar having a drink with me. She says she's always been in this bar drinking with me. I motion the waiter over and I ask for a smoked salmon sandwich, and she orders a little dipper beef dip, easy on the salt. She says she's already had too much earlier in her Jose Cuervos. She doesn't want her face to puff up like a pufferfish after all. Has to keep her image, you know. She's a fashionista. While we're deep in conversation, the sandwiches arrive and we keep talking, immersed in the convo, eyes locked on each other, while we absent-mindedly pick up the sandwich on our right. We're so engrossed in each other, the convo and the drink, that we don't notice that we have each other's sandwich. I think it's because we have each other's eyes, which are the mirrors to the soul, so they say. And when I say so they say, I mean the followers of the absentee Sunny Boy. We drink and we talk and we drink, and the time just slides in a gloss on a skating rink of quantum particles. And as I take my last sip and put my glass down, I'm back in the same old bar with me, myself, and I. It's then that I realize we are all one, me, myself, and I, and Carson McCullers, and all you wonderful people on this wonderful evening. And that is an ode to Carson McCullers. After reading me and Candice's work, don't feel bad if you have to Google the rest of the day, because Carson McCullers really did call her drink Sunny Boy. Otherwise, it's just an odd poem. Anyhow, we're going to keep the odes going to another one of my favorite poets. This is a Canadian chap. This is for all the Canadians. This one's called The Essence of Al Purdy. Love me some Al Purdy. Anyhow, what a wonderful sleep I just had, and the dream I had within it was more like an awakening than a dream. It started with the vision of a pristine white wash basin, and as I got a closer look, I could see it wasn't water inside of it. It was filled with a glowing, deep purple liquid, deeper than the deepest shade that you could ever imagine. The basin was set against an enchanted, but mostly forgotten background motif from yesteryear. As I leaned over to smell the juicy goodness, I heard a voice from behind me say, "It's different from the kind that you will find in Japan." I turned to see Al Purdy standing there alive and well, big-ass stogie in the left corner of his mouth, hair flowing wild and free like the man in his poetry. I asked him if he knew what was in the basin, and he answered with a sneer and a snort and said, "Know what's in it? I made what's in it, kid. I made it from my blood, sweat, and tears, my gut rumbles, constipation, and headaches, my misconceptions and my failings, my glories, and my moments of grandeur, no matter how short-lived or fleeting. Look, I made it from me. I call it the essence of Al Purdy. And let me tell you, with a very certain clarity, birthing a long-awaited and hard-fought crap is more like beginning and finishing a poem than anyone other than a true poet could ever imagine, even in their wildest dreams." Because he shared this very personal info with me, I thought I was now one of the inner circle, a comrade in paper, words, and thought. So I asked him if I could partake of the majestic purple. He said, "I bet you think it's the homemade sake, right? Well, it isn't. It's thoughty and brainy and hearty and purdy, and it will make anyone but Al Purdy very, very sicky. I'd like to give you a shot or two, kid, but I'm not a sadist, although some lousy poets have painted me as such with the brush of jealousy and ignorance. Bastards. So listen up, kid. You really don't want to write like me. You've got your own podium and pedestal to tame, here in the dream, but also there outside the dream. You just have to know it. I mean, you really have to know it and own it. Show you've got the jam and what it takes. Show you've got the goods, and then it no hold barred after that. So tally-ho, kid, mount up, hot spur your pony and pen and ride, hell-bent for leather. Cross the finish line first. I've always maintained that second is so overrated." I thanked him very much and shook his hand, and suddenly a magical pony appeared at my side, and I mounted up and raced past the wind and over the finish line first, faster than you can say Al Purdy. I looked back at Al, who was wildly clapping and shouting at the top of his lungs, "It's not a one-trick pony. Keep riding, kid. Keep riding." I would have been remiss in my life if I didn't write one for Al Purdy. I'm not saying he was a saint. Who is, right? All right, let's go. This is one of me and Candice's favorites. It's dedicated to anybody who's had to spend some time in the laundromat. One of the best things about being down and out for most of your life is you get to be a part of certain things that highbrow folks will never understand. This one's called Old Irish Me and My Kazoo. I was eating a Philly cheesesteak the other day, but it wasn't in Philadelphia. I was in a laundromat reflecting on the vast amount of hours and days that I've spent in laundromats in my life. Then I remembered I couldn't count that high in my head, so I just dropped that thought. I've never been to Philadelphia, but it's on my bucket list, but not because of their world-famous cheesesteaks. It's on my list because they have an unexpectedly big plethora of oddity shops in the city, and I'll fit right in, a human oddity. And I'm a lifelong fan of the oddities of life. If I ever make it to the city of brotherly love, I'll try to hook up with a twisted sister for a bite to eat. I will probably swing by Gino's and grab a cheesesteak. I would certainly have mine with Cheese Whiz. One of the good things about being from the poor side is you try things the rich folks never seem to buy, and it turns out that they're the ones missing out on the good thing. I mean, seriously, who in their right mind picks provolone over Cheese Whiz? Right now, I'm wondering why they call it whiz, but I digress. So back to laundromats, my coin and metal darling stewards. If you're going to be in the business of washing clothes, I would hope you have a sense of humor about it. And if you, like me, have been forced to be a laundromat regular throughout your life, then you damn sure better have a good sense of humor about life, soap, clothes, and people. I've washed my knickers and unmentionables at places like the Lost Sock, Permanently Pressed, Spot On, Spot Off, Cheapo Cleaners, Missing Buttons, and The Dirty Dog, just to name a few. The best are always the 24-hour mat shops. There's nothing better than people watching at a laundromat at midnight or 2 in the morning. These folks are a special breed of hobo cat. The kind who bring in all their dirty little bits, hoping that nobody will be watching them load them into the washer. One time I was there at 3 a.m. just minding my own when a hefty, built like a brick shithouse gal came in with a couple of bags of laundry. I was watching her, not for any other reason, just honest to God boredom. She turned to me and said in a harsh Irish brogue, "What are you staring at, commie?" I was delighted. I jumped up and in one swift motion pulled out my kazoo. "Take a listen to this, old Irish." I shuffled a few moonwalk steps, and then I started belting out a jammed up version of the old Jam Tart song, Irish Washerwoman. She immediately started to river dance to the beat. By the time our laundromat duties were completed, we were the best of symbolic and imbecilic friends, or at least so I thought. But alas, alack, I never saw her again. Being the sentimental, slightly mental fool that I am, I still go to the laundromat at 3 a.m. to do my laundry. Hope someday it'll appear out of the blue and I can pull out my old kazoo again. Rock her socks off to the beat of my drum. The one that I now carry in my huge stretched out back pocket. I never should have kept it there, as it's thrown my back out and bent my hips, so now my left leg is shorter than my right, and this makes me look a little bit gimpy when I walk. My walk always imprints a wedgie in my ass. But it's too late to change pockets now. If I did, I'd shorten the other leg, and then I'd lose an inch. An inch I can ill afford to lose. But I've got moxie, baby, true grit. I'm in it for the long haul. I've been spending so much time and money at the mat, I could have bought a share in it by now. But I didn't. I was, and I still am, too busy practicing my kazoo and waiting for old Irish just to show up again. All right, I got one more for all the poets in the building this evening. All right, there must be some poets here. I'm assuming that's why you showed up in the first place. You write poetry or write something. So anyhow, you'll appreciate this, okay? It's called Waiting. The strangest things happen when you're sitting there waiting for inspiration to strike. You think things like, I don't need a big following, I need a strong following. Or the 178 rejection slips and letters, emails and voicemails from the publishers, those were a good thing. Or maybe my chakra system is askew. Yet you really think those things inexhaustibly. Then it happens and you forget all that real quick, like it never happened, because you're too busy riding a wave and you're rising into fame and out of failure. And that's powerful. That moment is so powerful. But that too is fleeting. Everything is. Suppose that's a good thing and couldn't happen otherwise. So you resolve to accept the good with the bad and the ups and the downs, and that feels fine. Fits nicely like a hard stone sensibility. Fits perfectly like a tongue and groove papyrus leaf. There's plenty of those in some other realm. So when it fleets, it rebuilds at the same times. Oh, wait, where were we? Did I go off on some sort of tangent? Okay, so yeah, when you're sitting there waiting for the inspiration to strike, run the gate, ride the bull, and break the horse, grab inspiration from the heart of its dream, strike the match, light up a smoke, light up your life, burn the flames of inspiration into the wood, carving that poem into the dark of its age so it can be reborn again into the glory of the words. The words now dripping, drooling from your pen onto the stage of the waiting world. Some say the world is waiting for a sunrise. I say it's waiting for inspiration. It's been waiting for that poem. And that is all I have to say about things like that.
This is an acrostic poem, and it was written from a painting by Deborah DeJong Klein. Janet will remember this from last night. We read at the Wynn Poetry Group. The painting was in her gallery display, from which we chose images to write poems, and this was one of mine. Painting on the wall says, "This won't last," and the paint is oozing down, and there's a little black smiley face on the bottom right. This is on the wall. This won't last. The acid rain of vitriolic speech falls down upon us, one and each. The angry fist now pummels cheek. It often picks upon the weak, but pain can be endured, I teach. And peace will come because you reach, and all the pain will go, although perhaps not fast, because this acid rain can never stay. This won't last. These troubles down on Trouble Street, where depression and despair both meet, where drugs and smokes and fear entertain at the crossroads of Lost Avenue in Maine, where happiness and hope are ever bound, and every plan that was ever planned is lost and never to be found. But hark, a distant sound comes near, saying, "Never fear, this won't last." This won't last, this fear, this being lost. Life will endure no matter what the cost. We will return, we still will thrive, and we will live life full alive, because these troubles cannot last. We'll relegate them to the grave called past. I know because the die is cast. The gods in heaven say, "This won't last." The faded rose of hope will die inside the falling rain, but storms do blow themselves right out. The gain is in the calm that follows on, for hope and will rise, because this won't last. No trouble can. Life can and will surprise. For all of those in this dystopian disease, living in the cloak of deep despair with never any ease, but for the carers, this won't last. And peace at last for the sufferers, for the seat is heaven's cast in gold and set before their God, because this won't last. Thank you.
Very nice, Herb. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Richard.
Well, this is sort of consistent with the theme today with Candice and Matthew. I thought of this poem, and then it just so happened to be scotch taped to my wall, so I could easily find it. But it's in the same kind of genre. So this poem is called "Dangerous to Know." I don't envy the dumbasses who accept the inch-deep excuse that we don't know what we don't know. Lazy thinking fails to understand that we are imprisoned by our senses that cannot sense the whole story. Like invisible light waves. What's a gamma ray? Why aren't my buddies named Hubble? Our ears are equally deaf. Only dogs can hear sound waves that we are unable to hear. Wow, sound has waves? Yes, dumbass. And the inaudible frequencies you will never hear. Mr. Head in the Sand will struggle with the next artificial dichotomy. Buy him a dictionary for Christmas. Will he ever transcend the heads and tails confusion to see a bigger picture called a coin? With eyes that cannot see, ears that cannot hear, and hair-splitting words, is it too much to ask to recognize that we are slaves to a false reality? To bring this revelation to a premature end, I will skip why time does not exist and close that we are immortal. If you are not brain dead, then from your high school physics, you may remember the universal law that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It is only transformed. Well, Lucky for you, dumbass, your energy or consciousness or spirit or soul is indestructible and it is immortal. It is dangerous to know that you are infinite. Unfortunately, this means that I have to put up with you forever.
That's exactly what I expected from you, Richard. Good going.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great. All right, Glenn.
Now, keeping with today's theme, I'm going to recite the lyrics from a song that I've turned into a poem for now. It's been written over a few years. I'm just going to read it. It's called In Modern Times. It's sort of like keeping in today's theme. It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek look at how we view legends and so on. If Romeo and Juliet tried suicide today, they'd be rushed to the hospital and their lives would be saved. Then they'd be dragged to court and charged for committing passionate crimes. They'd be medicated and psychoanalyzed. If Don Quixote on his motorbike was to charge at windmills now, he'd be sued for vandalizing his regional electric power. He'd hire Pon Sanchez to write his book and call it Why I Charge the Power. He'd go from being scandalized to a star on a world tour. If it's in a storybook or in our history, we say, that sounds glorious. Why can't that be you and me? But when we hear it in the news or learn about it from a friend, we say, that's ridiculous. And I wonder what's wrong with them. If Jeanne d'Arc told us all she'd heard the voice of God telling her to lead a revolt to liberate her lands, she'd be called a terrorist, a lunatic, and a fraud, but some would still rush to aid her cause, seeing a visionary taking a stand.
That was great, though. I really enjoyed that. And Stephen.
Thank you, Carol. And this is not consistent with the theme. So this is one of the poems that I read at the WIN event last night. Janet and Herb were there also. And it was the first time I'd read it. So, and I got some good feedback on it. So I'm going to read it again. Who do we mourn? Who do we mourn and not mourn? Why do we mourn the friend and not the enemy? Why do we mourn those who are like us, but not those who are not like us? Why do we mourn the fallen human, but not the fallen tree? When we all breathe the same air, when we all depend on each other, when we all depend on the life force that surrounds us, why are we so selective in our grief? What does it gain us when we have the world to lose, the human and not the forest, and not the sea, and not the whale, and not the tree, and not the clean air, and not the planetary ecosystem? We have the world to lose, and in the world, ourselves. Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Stephen. I think it does go with kind of the theme of what we were talking about, or what people have been reading about today. So absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. How is it that you two Evidarians came together, like really, and found the Earth? My goodness, there are many planets out there, so I'm just curious about what brought you two together.
I'll let Matt field this one. Yourself, unmute yourself.
Okay. In the human realm, I guess we just came together because it was meant to happen. But for the story, and there is a novel coming out. This is a little teaser event. We have a novel coming out about the story of Evidaris and how we got here. But we're coming to help the humans. We are here. We're here to help. Don't worry about that. But in a real life way, Candice was going to be rejection slip number 179 until she returned my email and she said, hey, you're not halfway bad. Let's do something, man. And then we started writing stuff. But yeah, so I send Candice charcoal and she sends me back a diamond. That's the reality of what happens.
Nice. That's lovely. Any other Candice,
Oh,
did you
Richard.
Oh,
I think
Richard.
Richard-
All right.
Well, I don't really have a question, but I have a short story if I may share it. So my brother who lives in Comox is kind of a computer geek, and out of the blue, he sent me some manipulated pictures which turned me into an alien. And I actually had 3 of them, 3 different pictures. And so a couple of summers ago, now I have 4 daughters, and I took them out for coffee one at a time. And I said to them with a very serious face was, well, I wanted to have a coffee with you because I fulfilled my mission and I'll be leaving soon. And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I'm actually from the next galaxy and I'm being called home and my purpose has been fulfilled. I've seeded the earth with 4 daughters. And then I pulled up my alien pictures. And I repeated this 4 times. I kept a straight face and none of them believed me. So they knew I was full of baloney, but I'm very happy that they did not call 911 and the police didn't come around and arrest me under the Mental Health Act. So that's my story.
You may have just written yourself into the novel, my man. You may have just written yourself in. We're going to steal that scene with the 4 daughters, man.
Yeah, I had so much fun. You know, I fulfilled my mission on Earth with I've seeded the Earth, so I'm done, and I'm just come to say goodbye.
I have a quick question. How could you keep a straight face? Did you manage to do that?
Yeah, I did. I was
Wow.
totally serious with everything I said, and I said, "Here's what I really look like," you know. And I showed my kids the geek pictures my brother made up. Right?
That's great.
Yeah, I should use that for a passport picture.
Hello
Yes,
Herb.
Herb.
to the
Sorry.
2 authors there. What kind of planet is your Everdurian planet? Is that more like Mars or the moon or Jupiter?
Well, we'll each answer that. I'll answer it first, then I'll get Matt. It's like nothing you've ever seen in your wildest imagination. It's so good. Popsicle sticks can get up out of the popsicle and dance around and talk to you. The actual water thing that they stick in the colored water will stay. It will keep itself solid and levitated until the popsicle stick is finished doing its dance and reinserts itself. That's just one of the many things you'll see. You'll see fish jump out of water and tangle in midair, and you'll see boxing rings with crocodiles in the side. But they're all friendly. You know, nobody's killing each other. It's just a great place to live. And actually, one day we do hope to be able to slingshot the Earth past the sun to become a binary planet with ours when the Earth is ready. That's my take on it. Now, Matt.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And it's so pure that our beings don't know forms. So we come to Earth and we have to take these forms and we get to have a lot of fun poking fun at you humans and all the things you have to do on it. We're not even going to get into bowel movements and flatulence. We're not even going to go there. But just know it's a very pure planet. The beings don't have vessels like this. So it's very liberating, to say the least.
Must be easy to make fun of Earthlings.
Well, my great fear is we're enjoying ourselves so very much. When it comes time to go home, are we going to become rebels or not? Are we going to stay here? I just don't know. This is great too.
And
Candice,
go ahead, Janet.
wait, I just wanted Candice and Matt to maybe say a few words in their language.
Okay. Do you want to ask? Do you want to ask me a question and me answer, Matt, or do you want me to ask you a question and you answer?
Whatever you prefer, my friend.
I'd like to ask the question because the answer's always got to be longer. Okay. Idan for lunia bada bu dinin na muna nyama and you know Boy, that was a real risque answer. I'm glad you did it telepathically.
I don't think their human ears were ready for that.
Whoa, that was tough.
But Janet did
You guys
want
are
to,
naughty.
but Janet, you
Yes.
did want to know if they would make a stopover at Planet Janet, right?
Yes, I'm hoping.
Mm-hmm.
Or swing me back into space and.
Mm-hmm.
We will
Yes.
need coordinates. We need the coordinates to put them into our ever-ready Teddy Betty navigator.
Sounds good to me. Work it out.
I think you'll be 2 dances past the Poets Liaison and 1 degree south of there.
Okay,
Oh
you
my
can
God.
find me anywhere.
Richard?
Find me in the stars.
If I have your permission, I'd like to share you another sort of outer space story, less than 2 minutes.
Okay.
So I usually every summer go camping north of Powell River, backcountry camping. And this one trip I was testing out my amp with my acoustic guitar. And my amp had 11 different presets. And this was during the daytime. And I noticed that preset number 7 sounded like the sound effects of the movie Alien. Remember Alien, that movie? And that really weirdo sound? Well, that's what preset 7 was like. I said, wow, this is good. I'm going to save this for tonight. So I was camping at a campsite with about 15 spots in it. And I was at the very end of the campsite. And at 10 o'clock at night, I turned it on full blast. and I did this for a few minutes. And across the Georgia Strait was Savory Island. So I blasted Savory Island for a few good minutes. And oh man, I was just peeing myself laughing doing all of this. And then I put it away. So the next morning when the RCMP show up, any problems here last night? I said, no problems at all, you know. But I have to tell you, this is terrible. My favorite preset is preset number 7.
Oh, that's great. Oh gosh. Okay, guys. What do you say? Any more? I'm just checking the time. Not that it really
Yes.
matters. It's
been
just
incredible.
after 2.
I just want to say it's been an incredible event. I'm glad I came.
Yeah,
Very-
I'm glad you
very
came
unique,
too.
Very unexpected, very original.
Yeah,
A lot of talent there.
lovely.
Yeah,
And
I
so
got a good
spread
time.
the word, guys. That would be good. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
out of
kind
this world.
Mm.
It's kind
Nice,
of
Janet.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like poetry stories, poet stories. They're little poet stories, mini poet stories.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you going to post this on YouTube or what?
Yeah, I think I will. I'll just clean up a little bit of it and get rid of some of the little glitchers, which is there's not much. I think what I'll do is I'll do it in 2 parts. I'll do the actual readings we did, and then I'll do the after reading question answer on open mic. So there'll be 2 parts of it because it's going to be too long to get it up there. I tried to put something up there the other night, and they told me no way, way too long. So that's
Okay.
stuff.
Look
Yeah.
forward to it then.
What
Yeah.
would be the name? What would be the name I would look for to find that on YouTube?
Okay, that's a good question. We have a channel called Silverbow,
Yep.
and it'll be going up on that channel. It'll probably take me a day or 2 or 3 to sort everything out and get it ready up there. Now, if I can't get it all up there, and if anybody wants the actual footage, I can always Dropbox it to them also. So, yeah. This was fun. I
It
really
was great
enjoyed
fun. It really
Yeah.
was. Yeah, the poetry was really entertaining and mind shifting.
I love Richard's alien stories too. That was really
Yeah,
good. That alien
absolutely.
story.
Yeah, it was all good. You bet.
It was everybody had something to offer that
Mhm.
actually enhanced all of our lives here. I feel
Absolutely.
sorry for
Yep.
those that did not attend the enhancement.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, it's part of my process. I'm going to take a little bit of what you did tonight and share it, and it's going to become a poem, each of you, what you did. So I know one's going to be called Setting 7. I already know that.
So this will be down in Southington, Connecticut, and then all the people down in that area are gonna see you guys and hear you guys. You're gonna be all well known soon.
That's cool.
Ciao, everybody.
Okay,
nice you
so
never-
see you all next time.
Yes, see you.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye. So I'm going to start with her.